there, and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug video. And today I want to talk about the character of Socqueline and how in the story of Miraculous, she's kind of been screwed over. Today I want to answer the question, from both a meta and an in-universe perspective, does she deserve better? Does she deserve better from the actual writers? Does she deserve better from the characters within the story? First though, I want you to let me set the scene somewhat about what got me thinking about all of this. Sometimes, there are minor characters within the world of Miraculous Ladybug that just make you think more deeply about it, whether that's good or bad. I myself am often ruminating on these sorts of characters. Probably my favourite of these to talk about is Andre the Ice Cream Man, who within the canon of the show is presented as a mostly friendly sort of person who makes people's lives complete with his perfect and magic ice cream. That's clearly how you too are supposed to view this man. You're supposed to find him charming and kind of cute. A sweet gentleman who just wants to make people happy. That's clearly the writer's intention. He's presented as morally good, and the way you know that is that every single character you meet sings this guy's praises hard. Marinette, Adrian, Nino, Alia. Pretty sure Marinette's parents even mention him at one point, although I might be mistaken there. These characters all think he's just swell, whilst the characters that the writers want you to dislike, such Chloe, are going to treat him badly. Obviously, you as the audience member are supposed to heavily sympathise with him, and be happy to see him when he's on screen. That being said, I consider myself one of the OG haters of this guy. When you look deeper past authorial intent, you can see that in reality this dude is pretty whack and not at all the guy the narrative claims him to be. In his introductory episode, Glaciator, the guy has a mental breakdown because Marinette gets upset that Adrian doesn't turn up to their hangout, and so she doesn't think that love ice cream has power. Yes, he faces down the skepticism of a single teenage girl. Not an angry mob, not social media, not media scrutiny. A single girl. And he breaks down and gets akumatized like the cringe lord that he is. In his ice cream form, he intends to hunt her down, I suppose kill her, by turning her into an ice cream and letting her melt, which is certainly a bit of an escalation. Pretty sure later on he goes to get akumatized again when his real life ships aren't playing out the way he wants them to. Yes, that is correct. This dude gets way in his feelings when Marinette and Cat Noir go out on a date. In his eyes, she belongs with Adrian, and Cat Noir belongs with Ladybug. Never mind that Ladybug has openly denied any sort of feelings for Cat Noir many times before that. Never mind that he barely knows these people at all beyond when they go and buy his ice cream. Hell, I doubt that he's ever actually spoken to Ladybug and Cat Noir beyond when they de-akumatized him during his debut episode, and yet there he is, acting like an online weirdo who needs to touch grass and is trying to manifest their fan fiction into reality. Regardless of what's going on in his strange and demented little mind, the dude has got to be 50 plus, and he's getting way too invested in the private lives of children. I won't stand for that. Plus, the dude's illegally running his ice cream cart without a permit, which is stealing from the city, and I'm pretty sure the money you pay to register your business and get your permit goes into the city budget, which in turn pays upkeep of facilities and whatnot. What a freeloader! Without registering, there's less oversight of his business, and thus you can't guarantee health and safety standards. Sorry for the side tangent here, it did run away from me a little bit, but I couldn't help myself. I think about Andre the Ice Cream Man, and I have an instinctual need to unleash my verbal screed. I'm not even sorry about that. The world needs to know. Do you see what I mean though? You dig a little bit deeper into these sorts of characters, and by doing so, it changes the way you see the story, and also, it can make you salty about the way things have been written. This is what we're going to be doing today for Socqueline, and how from an in-story perspective, she kind of deserves better from pretty much everybody. I suppose we'd better start by talking through who the hell Socqueline even is. Remember back in the day when they had that anime-style reel for Miraculous Ladybug that showcased their early plans and character designs? For a couple of years after that, people were always requesting they bring a version of these characters into the show. I mean, specifically, they all wanted Felix, and eventually during the course of Season 3, he made his long-awaited debut as Adrian's cousin, and in the time since, he's gotten massively popular with the fan base due to his overall persona, and also seemingly with the writers, who always write him so well. After all, his episodes all seem to feature some pretty extreme plot progression for their time, which in turn made him seem way more impressive than your average character. They let him do things that other characters can't. He easily makes Chloe look like a fool. He gets the drop on Gabe multiple times. He's even the entire reason behind the big win for the villain side at the end of Season 4, where they managed to steal all the Miraculouses apart from the Ladybug and the cat. Suffice to say that his character well and truly blew up and became the show's definitive anti-hero, an important player across the final 3 seasons of the first saga. It took a lot longer for them to introduce the alternate Marinette though, and from a meta perspective, the way she was written was certainly not with the same care as Felix. At first, it did have me questioning why, but when I thought about it more deeply, I pretty quickly realised why that was. The reality is that there's not much you can do with her character compared to his. Look at the way Felix is presented. He's a dark and cunning person. He's out for himself and for his own agenda, and is willing to do almost anything to get what he desires. However, despite these more self-centered motivations, he actually does love and care about his family deep down. Whilst he might hate Gabe and his late father with a passion, he clearly does love Adrian, his mum, and his Aunt Emily. On top of that, he has the whole thing about sentient creatures and how they deserve to live. We see him get rather upset when he has no choice but to be part of the death of the strike-back Senti monster, and he openly cries when he realizes he has no choice but to kill the Red Moon that he created that helped him wipe out humanity in Paris that one time. He dresses real classy and formal. He's quite cold and closed off in the way that he treats others, but it's often in a way that makes you smirk as opposed to feeling bad for the characters. He was just a little shit, to tell you the truth, and I think a lot of people like it that way. Compare and contrast that to the way that Adrian's portrayed, and you can see why there's room for a character like Felix in the show. Adrian's never going to be like this. It runs counter to everything his character's supposed to be. Thus, you can take this edgier, darker take on the character and repurpose him to fit in the world and work within the confines of the story very well in a way that you can't with Socqueline. After all, Marinette already has a number of dark mirror-type characters that are meant to serve as a foil to her personality. Chloe, Lila, those type of folks. Characters who are presented as self-centered and cruel, who don't value their friends or those around them, who overall lack the simple compassion that makes a hero. Thus, introducing a fresh character with that mindset would be weird, because the niche is filled. And regardless, it wouldn't have been true to the original vision anyway. As far as I'm aware, Marinette's personality was locked in long before Adrian's, and so when you turn this character into Socqueline, it would become too samey. You'd have two characters who look the same and behave the same, just with different names, which would be bad writing, as it would showcase a startling lack of creativity. Thus, I think they made the choice to make her almost like the Marinette of the future, somebody to look up to and aspire to be like. That being said though, this style of writing runs into its own set of problems before long. The reality is that Miraculous is ultimately a story of growing as a person. Marinette becomes a leader, becomes more assertive, she becomes braver and is able to stand up to people, both on behalf of herself and also on behalf of others. Over the course of the seasons, you want to see her grow and continue to develop. That's why the mentor character Master Fu had to bite the dust, so that Marinette could then step into that role of being the leader without training wheels, without assistance. It's also why the writers have to have her verbally slap down Suhan on a regular basis, despite this dude being the way more experienced head guardian. It's teen adventure storytelling 101. The adults must be incompetent at all times, so the teenagers can save the day again and again and again, and always feel like they're fighting against impossible odds all alone. Thus, you can't have a character that looks like Marinette, who's all the things that Marinette wishes to be, in the story right from the get-go. It would end up in Dragon Ball syndrome. In that manga/anime, Goku is the lead character. He's very clearly presented as the main hero of the story, and eventually he has a son called Gohan. This son gets stronger and is eventually proclaimed to be the new strongest lead protagonist. But it can never stick because the fans are now invested in Goku too much to just let somebody new take his place. This could have been the same thing for Marinette if you allow somebody who's better than her in every way to always appear in the story, until she's ready to be shuffled off to the side. Thus, it was necessary that she didn't appear until Marinette had already well and truly arrived at that point in her character arc, which she firmly is by season 5. On top of that, I think they just had no need for the character and they only decided to chuck her in for a bit of fan service. After all, the only real time she was relevant was in her introductory episode and then the flashback episode. I do not think they ever had long-term plans for this character. Fair enough, the cast is very full, and she doesn't bring much to the table that the other cast members don't. From a writing perspective, she is superfluous and adds little. She isn't Felix, and she's never gonna be. I think the occasional cameo is the best we're gonna get. Or maybe she'll be like the doorman at the Grand Paris Hotel and just disappear from the show altogether, since she doesn't add anything else by appearing. We'll have to wait and see though. However, that's not the only thing I want to be talking about. We've addressed that in reality, she doesn't deserve better from the writers. She was there for some fun fan service, but she doesn't have to be given more than that. What about in storyline though? I think there's certainly a case to be answered there. I mean, let's take a look at her role in the season. When we first meet her character in the season 5 episode Jubilation, where she's masquerading as Ladybug and doing good deeds, Marinette gives us exposition via talking to Tiki that Socqueline was an old friend from school the previous year, but who had moved up a grade and thus left the school to go elsewhere, just like Marinette and her class are preparing to do during season 5. Their initial meeting is kind of awkward. Socqueline references being glad that Marinette was okay, and that she was worried about leaving her alone with Chloe. However, it also felt clear that this was a prime case of a drifting friendship, where once school friends aren't always in the same place, they begin to fade away from each other's lives due to distance, shifting priorities, or just a lack of much in common away from that school context. Been there, done that for sure. There's nothing weird about it, sometimes shit just happens. They finish off the episode on good terms after Ladybug takes down the Dark Corral, who is yet another vigilante trying to play hero without any powers at all. And so you expect, oh, well, maybe they're going to reconnect more this season. Maybe they're going to reforge their friendship. It doesn't really happen though, at least on screen, and her main appearances are just selling stuff in her family's arts and crafts shops. At least, that's until we see the episode Derision, where we get an in-depth flashback to what Marinette's life was like the previous school year. In a word, it was shit. Her life was so sucky. She was enduring some pretty severe bullying from Chloe and Sabrina, and since Kim is and was a Chloe simp, when it's discovered that Marinette's crushing on him, he goes along with the girl's plan to humiliate Marinette publicly. He still doesn't have any regrets about it, by the way, because he tells this traumatic story as a funny anecdote to his girlfriend and to Marinette's current boyfriend, expecting them to find it funny. Smooth, Kim! Real smooth. Anyway, you know who has Marinette's back throughout all the bullying that goes on from Chloe and Sabrina? It's not her parents, to be honest. It's not the teachers either, who are completely under the thumb of Chloe, even harder than they are in the regular time. It's also not Marinette's friends who do absolutely jack shit to help. It's Socqueline instead. She stands up to Chloe again and again and protects Marinette from her bullying. She tries to tell Marinette that she needs to be strong and to stand up for Chloe herself because she won't always be there. That it's the only way to take back the power. She tries to warn her away from Kim because she can tell he is an absolute dumbass. When Marinette's going on her date, Socqueline goes out of her way to stay behind and make sure that everything's all good. She then attacks Chloe and outright breaks her phone to stop her from humiliating Marinette online. This in turn gets her suspended from school for the last couple of weeks of school, and I'm pretty sure it meant she wasn't allowed to go to their graduation party. She even tells Marinette to still be strong when she leaves. Suddenly, this changes the context of everything, right? I feel like this is a bad retcon. It was done in service of making Chloe look even worse than she was presented as, and far more of an insidious bully than she seemed to be in season 1. However, at the same time, it makes Marinette look like such a shitty friend. This girl stuck her neck out for her, and was ride or die, and what does Marinette do? She finds a new spunky friend on the first day of school for the new school year, and spends all her time hanging out with her or the other girls, none of whom actually helped her or stood up to Chloe at all. Only Alia did that, and previous to her, only Socqueline did that. Socqueline, who whilst older was clearly a close friend based on the context of Derision, is left out in the cold and they begin to drift away. It's almost like she was used and discarded when she wasn't needed. I mean, Marinette has a phone. She could call or go to the art shop and hang out, but she doesn't. Obviously because Socqueline as a character doesn't exist until season 5. But by having this retroactively added, it makes Marinette look crap and like a bad friend, even though it's wildly out of character. Honestly, it is shitty writing. Regardless though, the facts don't lie. And in my eyes, poor old Socqueline got the short end of the stick from Marinette and she well and truly deserves better. True story. Of course though, in the end, these have all been my opinions and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of my ramblings on Socqueline today? Do you agree with me? Maybe not. Maybe you think it's utter garbage. I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and let me know.